morning, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. We got a special Faithful Friday edition, a special Behind Enemy Lines edition. I'm excited to welcome back Candace Higgins. She's been on the show a few times. Great guest, great YouTube and Twitter personality. Also, she does podcasts as well, too. Make sure you check them out. But Candace, obviously it's Seahawks week. We got Seahawks and Niners playing at Levi's this Sunday. I'll be there. Excited to chop it up with you. But, you can find Candace at Candace H901 on Twitter and X. And then also on Twitter X, you can see at Ethos Seahawks. And then the link for the YouTube channel is in the description, so you can just click the link. Make sure you give Candace a like and subscribe. We're streaming to both channels, so it's good to, if you're on TED Talks Ball, give Candace a like and subscribe. If you're on Candace's channel, please pop over to TED Talks Ball. Give me a like and subscribe. If you're watching on a browser, open up two tabs. Just make sure you mute one of them, or it can get a little confusing with the echo. But, it really helps us out. So thanks in advance to everybody for your support on that. Candace, how are you? Anything I may have missed? Anything that you want to promote? I'm going to go dark just for a sec, so I'm going to turn on those lights behind me, but I am right here. So
okay, cool. Well, no, it's always great to be on with you, Ted. I always love it, talking ball with you. Just always good to talk. It's sort of always just fun to have that rivalry back and forth. But definitely, if you are listening via Ethos Seahawks, make sure you do give Ted a follow, because he's a great content creator as well. And always good to keep tabs on our enemies. So make sure you give him a follow. He's a cool guy, though. So be sure to do that. But yeah, I'm just happy to be on and happy to talk football.
Right on. Yeah, it's always good to get. I try to do at least one Behind Enemy Lines every week. Last week, I think I had 6 Eagles creators on, which is
That's insane.
A little much. A little eagled out by the end of the week. But, I want to hear as many different viewpoints and perspectives outside, because I do all my weekly shows with Niners creators. Well, I have one Browns guy that I do it on a weekly basis, but mostly it's Niners guys. And, sometimes we end up with kind of a little bit of an echo chamber. And I just want to hear from outside perspective of what people think. It's always really helpful to get sort of the unhomer version of what or sometimes it turns out to be more homer than I am, but, just a different opinion. So let's real quick say hi to folks in the chat. We got Nancy Cameron in the house saying good morning. Nancy is the first member of TED Talks Ball. So thank you for being here, Nancy, and thank you for being here all along. She's been a really great supporter of the show, and a great person. I worked with her before in the past, so really great to have that support. So thanks, Nancy, for being here. So I guess first and foremost, we were talking a little bit backstage. And I was saying like, hey, I'm not here to beat up the Seahawks or talk trash. If anything, I think that, the game might be a little different than it was on Thanksgiving, in that, personnel wise, the Seahawks have some key additions back. I think Kenneth Walker, the running back, will be back.
He was limited. Yeah, he's limited in practice as of yesterday. So we'll see what that ends up looking like on Friday. He's got a shot.
Yeah, I figure if he was doubtful last Thursday, then, a lot of times that's enough time to be ready by this Sunday. And then you guys got your bookend tackles back, I think, for the first time this season since the Rams game.
Week 1. Yep.
The home opener.
Yep.
Or the season opener, at least, if it wasn't.
Lucas played in the Cowboys game, though he did go out at some point in that game, and he is also limited. So we'll see.
Okay. Yeah. But that's big. Those guys are good tackles, and those were big losses. Those, two of the things I pointed at when we went on Thanksgiving is like, yeah, just remember, guys, they didn't have Kenneth Walker, they didn't have Lucas at the tackle, and now they both could potentially be back. Plus, I think there's more factors too that are not personnel related, or that are just more like emotion related. Like, the Seahawks have lost 3 in a row. I think they're pretty pissed off. The Niners on the flip side are just coming off the biggest win, maybe the biggest road win of Kyle Shanahan's career. He's up there with like the New Orleans game, beating y'all in 2019 to get the number 1 seed. It's like top 3 or 4 all time for Kyle Shanahan. And so they can say all they want about like, oh yeah, we barely even partied on the plane, and we were just like, oh yeah, now it's just we gotta get ready for Seattle. You can say it all you want, but like, and then they said other things that I thought were funny, like Fred Warner does this podcast with his wife, and he was like, oh, you mean other people wore all black too? Like, I'm totally surprised. We didn't plan that at all. And I was like, come on, dude. 7 or 8 of them wearing all black. It's like, of course you coordinated that. The Philly funeral or whatever you want to call it. And so it's just like when you get that up for that game, then it's just very natural to have a letdown for the next game. A great example, a show I did this week, yesterday, I started doing with the Browns creator. And like that week of the Browns game, I predicted in my article a letdown for the 49ers against the Browns because coming off beating the Cowboys 42-10. And I'd looked back at all these other teams that had come off these big wins and that had big letdowns, including the Cowboys had a letdown after they beat the Jets. They lost to the Cards. The Dolphins had a letdown after they beat the Broncos, that epic 70-20 beatdown. Then they lost badly to the Bills the next week, and then the Bills obviously badly beat the Dolphins. Then they didn't lose badly, but they lost to the Jags in London.
Right.
And I was like, so like I think 3 or 4 of the teams that had blowouts in the year had letdown games the next game and actually lost. I didn't say the Niners would lose to the Browns. I just said I thought we wouldn't win as much as as well as we did against the Cowboys.
Right.
I certainly wasn't expecting CMC to get dinged up and leave the game. Trent Williams to play on one leg and Debo to get injured and leave for about 3 games. Trent Williams obviously left so then we lost those 3 games. And anyway, the bottom line is it's kind of the same thing this week. I'm not saying I think that the Niners will lose, but I am saying don't expect it to look like it looked in Philly either.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, we're divisional rivals. I think the Seahawks have really great weapons with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And now JSN is starting to take off, it looked like, in the Cowboys game to me.
Yep.
You guys obviously have really solid tight ends who can all block and catch. None of them are world beaters, but really solid. And then, like I said, Charbonnet's been playing well. And then, you get back Kenneth Walker. And it's like, even if Charbonnet's playing well, it's good to have, platooning and the ability to give him a little rest, a little breather at the very least. So
Charbonnet is banged up right now. He got banged up in the last game. He wasn't able to finish that Cowboys game. That was really kind of when things went downhill for the offenses. When he went out and they started playing, DJ Dallas, he got hurt. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He got hurt. So he also is limited in practice as well.
Oh boy.
So that's a question mark because right now, I mean, it's DJ Dallas and Kenny McIntosh, who has not played a snap of NFL football to this point, who I like. I'm high on Kenny McIntosh, but he hasn't played a snap of NFL football. So I think one of those guys will be available. The question is who, and, do we get both?
And how much?
And right, exactly. But both of those guys are banged up right now.
If they were both 100%, yeah, that would be a big plus also. Interesting. Good to know. All right, that all helped me this all helps me. I got to write my article today in the night and have it ready for tomorrow, ideally. So always doing these behind enemy lines is really helpful for that. So thank you, Candace. I appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll gain more insights from each other as we go through. We got Silly Fun Guy in the house. He's a Rams fan, but don't hold him against him. He's a pretty good guy. And he also usually has some pretty funny dad jokes. The one yesterday was probably one of my favorites. He said, I recently was kidnapped by mimes. He said they did unspeakable things to me. That's great, because usually the dad jokes are like more good. Yeah, usually they're more punny than funny.
Yeah.
And there's like you want to play that wah 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 track after them, but the good news is they're usually not very offensive at the very least. So usually don't piss people off too badly by telling them. But Silly says this feels like a trap game for the 49ers, even though the Hawks have a respectable team. Yeah, I mean, I feel like any team you overlook can be a trap team. I will say we're definitely not looking ahead to the Cards and like being like, oh, the Cards.
Yeah.
But even though Kyler is back, so that adds a little, and they've been playing a little bit better with him. But any of these games could be trap games. Seahawks, Commanders, Rams at the end of the season. I would say, Ravens can't be because they're just too darn good. That's one we'd be looking at and overlooking the Cards the week before. the Ravens game. I feel like, statistically, we have the number one defense. I'm not sure that we do. Stats can lie. I'm pretty big on that. And I go off the eye test. And our D looked pretty good, especially against the Eagles. But I would just say if we're not number one, then it's the Ravens, I think. Would be the number one defense.
Those guys, they are beasts right now.
No doubt. No doubt. Nancy was just saying, interesting pattern. I think she must mean in your background.
No, I think she was talking about, she put that up when you were talking about the pattern of like how the big game, how the teams with
with the letdowns. Yeah, it's very common. Yeah. It's such an emotional sport. And when you get really high one week, you usually have a low the next week. It's very much just like, same thing happens to people who do a lot of drugs. They get really, really high and then they come down, they have a down after. It's a very natural thing for the human body, for the human psyche and emotion to have happen. You use up all the serotonin and then there's none left the next week. No doubt about it. Thanks for helping me clarify that. Obviously, huge history between the two teams. Very interesting that the Seahawks were 17-4 against us with Russ, and now 0-4 since Russ left. A lot of Seahawks fans told me they weren't going to miss Russ, but I think against us, you kind of have to say that you do.
No, I still can't say that. Now, do I wish we could beat you guys? Yeah, but was it worth the $50 million that it would have taken to keep them? No, like give me that $50 million all day. I'm sorry. I can't say I miss Russ.
Plus all the picks and
love the memories. So what?
Plus all the picks and the players.
Yeah, I can't go quite as far to say we miss Russ, but I think it's fair to say that Russ was really good against you guys. Obviously, that was a dominant record, and without him, I think there's a clear pattern between the two. It just doesn't make me miss Russ. So
there you go. Fair.
But overall, I would say this is a tale of two different teams for sure. Like I think to your point earlier, like I don't know if you could have a team and have two teams at two different trajectories, right? Like Seahawks are really trending down, and maybe that means that they galvanize and really steal a win or what have you. That's possible. Not going to overlook that, but I will say just where I am and how I view the team right now is philosophically, I'm not happy with the Seahawks. It's really not a question about personnel or talent or matchups for me. Like I went into this season because we didn't get to talk before the Thanksgiving matchup because it was Thanksgiving. But
yeah, it was a short week. I didn't even write an article that week.
Right,
we had too hard to make. We had some family commitments. We got out. I mean, we have a young son. We had a son born on September 18th.
Oh, that's right, you did.
Our second child. So we haven't been out much, and we got a chance to get out on a Tuesday night for a cocktail party in the city. So we did that, and we had some family photos Wednesday evening, and then I did some shows, and I was just like, I just there wasn't much time to get together that week, and I did, like I said, this is the 1 week this year I didn't write an article either. Right. Preview article because I didn't have a chance. I'm glad I didn't because I wouldn't have predicted 31-13. I'll tell you that right now. Yeah. I would have predicted a really close game and I would have been way off, kind of like I was with Philly. But I have an excuse for that and will remind me to come back. But I cut you off, so go ahead.
Yeah, but no. So really, where I am, I went into this season, and one of the main things I stood on was, for me, my opinion on Pete Carroll would be make or break based upon how this year went, because Pete Carroll has a lot of great qualities overall as a coach, but to me, if he's a defensive coach, he has struggled to put together a defense that has been above average since 2018. And to go that long without a defense that's at least average, right? Like, I'm like, okay, if he can at least put together an average defense, you've changed the scheme, supposedly. You've changed personnel 3 or 4 times. And if you still at this point can't get the best out of your defense, then you can't coach. Like, you can't be the coach. It's just that simple. Like, there's no other coach. If they're their side of the ball, they're going to be bad on that side of the ball for 6 years and then still have their job. Like, and so that's what I went into this year looking at. And for the first half of the season, it looked promising. It looked like we were making some progress. I disagreed with several of the personnel decisions that they made. I don't know if you paid much attention, but we talked at least last last season, we're talking about how we've got all this 4-3 personnel. We want to go 3-4, right? That was a big deal. Having 3-4, having 4-3 guys play 3-4. It really didn't work.
It's brutal.
Right?
It's really hard to
brutal.
transition.
It
That's
was.
why we skipped on Vic Fangio this year, because he's a traditional 3-4 DC, and it's just like Bosa is the quintessential 4-3 defensive end.
Yep.
And we can explain. I'll explain that in a minute. Remind me to explain that to everybody what the difference is. But go ahead.
Yes. But what Pete did, which blew my mind, is they got all his 3-4 guys, right? And so I'm excited. If you pay attention, the Seahawks run primarily 4-man fronts. So it's this weird thing where like they got 3-4 guys and they're playing 4 down linemen, and they got 2 of them with the hand in the dirt and then 2 like standing out on the edge. It's a weird mix, and I didn't understand it when they first started it. It still doesn't make much sense to me. Initially, it looked okay. Run defense was really dominant, what have you. I don't know what's going on in the chat right now.
Really funny. He's doing his dad jokes. All right, let me just do it real quick. Vegetarians regret their lifestyle because it's all a mistake.
Oh, I get it. Okay, I was reading that.
And they said, because good steak puns are a rare medium done well. So it's rare that they're done well. So anyway, sorry.
Dad joke of the day.
Steve-O was also saying that you're his favorite Seattle fan, and Nancy was liking what you had to say. Exactly, and thank you, Candace. So there you go. Now we're caught up.
Okay. I was like, what is happening with steak? What? But anyway, so to me, I think initially it worked mostly because Uchenna Nwosu is just really versatile. I feel like he's a really versatile guy who can really make that scheme work. Who can make,
and he might be back, right? If y'all make the playoffs, is that right? There's a chance he could come back.
I don't think so. I don't. I haven't.
I thought I saw that when he initially went down.
No, I think he was out for the year. That's why they went ahead and made, they signed Frank Clark, whatever that was supposed to do, and and then still went out and got Leonard Williams to think they needed a gap. So ultimately, what they did was they started playing Draymond Jones out on the edge.
I saw that. That's a really interesting move.
Leonard Williams, which actually has worked well. I don't think that strategy is bad, but again, just personnel wise, I think I hate the merging of 2 principles. I think you get the work. I think you get too many weaknesses that are too unaccounted for. If you're going to have 3-4 and 4-3 merged in ways, it doesn't work, especially because if you are still considering yourself 3-4, which I don't know that they are anymore, that's confusing, their coverage schemes are still way too weak for me. And that's really where philosophically I'm down against you guys, because I really feel like this team, you're right, has the talent, the personnel to match up with you guys. But I don't think we put our personnel in the best decisions, in the best positions to really defend. You guys want to get guys out in space, take advantage of the zones, really take advantage of the linebackers that we have that can't cover. As good as they might be, they can't cover. And it works every time. And I just don't understand why we got man corners and then play them in zone. It doesn't match up to me. Like, coming out, Devin Witherspoon was a man corner guy. He was known as that. You got him for that reason, I thought. And then they just don't use them like that. And so then we're still in the same situation where we were. It doesn't matter that our personnel is upgraded. If we're going to do the same things we did when we didn't have the personnel, then what's the point? So that's really where I am with the team. I'm kind of out on Pete, and I hate to say it because I think he brings a lot of positive to the table, but the philosophy of things he's trying to do to mix and match, not be married to any one scheme, and try to take different things from different schemes and make them one thing, just makes this defense weak as a whole.
More gum for Candace, I guess. No, sorry. So yeah, that's interesting. The Niners do some of that too. I've been really mad at Steve Wilkes for making Mooney Ward play a lot of times off ball when he's really a press, man press zone, whatever. He's got to be able to check the receivers right at the line of scrimmage to impede their progress off the ball for him to be at his best. And so I think some of it is like, you look at what happens like when Jalen Hurts, if you play man against him and they just send all 4 receivers on go go routes, and then he just does a QB draw on 3rd and long, and everybody's got their back turned to him until he's 8-10 yards down the field. So it's a good way to pick up those 3rd and longs. The other thing too is it can be hard to have a spy when you're in man coverage, but I'm not gonna make excuses for you guys. I agree. If Witherspoon is a man corner, then that's how you should play him, and you should maybe zone up on the other side of the field or something like that, because it can be done like that. So it's interesting. And then while we're talking about defense, I saw that Jordan Brooks got injured in the Cowboys game. Does it look like he's going to play this week?
He did not practice this week, or at least to this point, he has not practiced. So unless this upcoming report for today comes out differently, I doubt that he plays.
That would be a big loss.
It would. But it would be interesting because Devin Bush is the one linebacker that can cover, and I think when he's been in cover situation, he's really played limited snaps. They were high on Jordan, wanted him to come out and play, wanted him to play with Bobby. Cool, but I think the smarter thing schematically would have been to use Devin Bush in situations where teams are attacking you in coverage, and so like I said, limited snaps, really small sample size, but he's been the best guy in coverage, no question. And he's been good when they played him. He's not been a liability or anything. They just love Bobby. They love Brooks. So I actually am curious to see if this changes anything. With Jordan Brooks being out, or does that make us overall more competent in terms of over the middle throws? Can we defend those better? I'm hoping so. That I like Jordan Brooks a lot, but I just wish that we had some more complementary skill sets going on at the linebacker position than what we do.
Yeah, Devin Bush, for people who don't know, was very highly drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's now a Seahawk, so there's a lot of feeling that maybe he wasn't a fit for what they were doing in Pittsburgh, but he somewhere else, change the scenery might be just what he needs. And like Candace was saying, he's good in coverage. So that's interesting. I didn't think about that. Didn't realize that. So maybe Jordan Brooks won't be that big of a loss as I thought it might be.
He will be in the run game, but
in the run game. Okay. And that's tough against us.
But Bobby's still there. So,
yeah. And he's still great in the run game.
Right.
And a little bit of a liability in pass coverage. So maybe that coverage might be just what the doctor ordered. For the Seahawks defense. Interesting. And earlier we were talking about 3-4 versus 4-3 defenses. For people who don't know the difference, it sounds like a 3-4 because you're going back from the line to the linebackers. It sounds like a 3-4 has less linemen, but it's kind of misleading because when you have a 3-4, you have 3 down linemen. You have a defensive tackle and 2 defensive ends, but they kind of all are more like defensive tackles in a 3-4 system. Where in a 4-3 system what the Niners run, which is like where you got 2 defensive ends and 2 defensive tackles, and the defensive so there are just 4 set linemen. But in a 3-4, the 2 outside linebackers actually play on the edge, and then one of them peels off into coverage on the strong side, usually on the tight end or maybe a back or something like that. So so that's a little bit of the difference. They kind of both end up with 4 defensive linemen. Or pass rushers, you might say, without blitzing. They just do it in different ways. So that's an interesting thing for sure.
Yeah, that's Thank you for clarifying. Sorry, didn't mean to go too deep dive there, but yeah, and that's a good point. That's really for the Seahawks. They were last year in the middle of making a philosophical scheme change because up to this point, like the 49ers, Seahawks have been exclusively 4-3, and then they went about deciding to make a scheme change, and then apparently abrupted that 1 year in, like 1 year after the experiment, deciding that they're going to pivot back to a weird version. It's really what the Seahawks run is neither. It's really neither.
Not a hybrid.
In the traditional sense of the word, it's really not an either. So I think, and Pete Carroll's talked about it before in press conferences, not scheme last year, but he was saying they took on the Vic Fangio scheme. Well, Pete Carroll has said he doesn't really want to take on the Vic Fangio scheme. He wants to pull elements from it and apply it with the philosophy that he knows and is familiar with. And so you get a mismatch of schemes, which I think leaves more vulnerabilities than what I think they account for every year.
That's interesting. Yeah, and obviously if you got Draymond Jones out on the edge, that's not any scheme I've ever heard of. He's definitely more of a D tackle. I mean, there are some D tackles who can play on the edge, but you don't want them there all the time, I don't think.
Well,
And
let me add this in on Draymond. His most successful year with the Broncos was actually the year where he played the most snaps on the edge. So
interesting.
That's the year that he got the contract. The season before he got the contract renewal with them, and he played out on the edge, and so he was known as a versatile guy who could do both. Who was theoretically a defensive tackle, but if you go back and look at the stats, his best years were as a DN. So sort of makes sense what they're doing with that. It's better than Frank Clark out on the edge at this point. But I also agree in the theory that it's not the best use of your personnel either. Yeah,
that's too bad, with Frank Clark, because I said, like, with Uchenna Nwosu going down, having Clark be available like that was like such good luck for the Seahawks. And obviously he's not Nwosu, or at least not anymore. But I mean, just have him available. But I guess maybe there's a reason why he was available, and he's been pretty worthless, it sounds like.
Yeah, and then there were other people competing for his services. He did say that, so we weren't the only bidder. But he should retire. He's out. He's out of the juice. Out of juice. If you go back and watch the film, I mean, I think he might have like a hurry a game. Like he might average that, a hurry, like not a sack, not a hit. Like he's really not getting to the quarterback at all, and he's a real liability in the run game anyway. So I'm sort of, I'm out on them, but I know that they don't have the bodies. So I would rather see our rookie Derek Hall though, and let him get those snaps. But Seahawks feel differently. So Frank Clark it is, but he's got no juice. That's for sure.
That's. I mean, it's a bummer for him. I've never been a really big fan of his, just because of, the stuff that happened with his personal life and everything.
Right.
But was he a Seahawk before he was a Chief?
Yeah. In fact, it was the Frank Clark trade that allowed for us to have the assets to go get DK. So he had I could be wrong here, but I want to say a 17 sack season, 15, 17, something like that. He had an incredible season with the Seahawks. It was in a contract year. The Seahawks did not think he could replicate that. Chiefs did. So they played him this huge contract. Seahawks traded him, and I think honestly got better because of that trade, because he was never able to duplicate
that was 2019, because I remember we traded for D Ford, and a lot of people were like, oh, I wanted Frank Clark. I'm like, the Seahawks were never going to trade us for Frank Clark, people. Yeah. And the Niners pretty much don't want that type of character risk anyway. But Steve Supremo says 24-22. I've been saying 28-20 is what I think the score will be. Did you have a score prediction for the game? Is it too early? Do you want to talk more about other stuff?
Yeah, I'll say 28-17. I don't think we'll be able to put too many points. Close. Yeah, pretty close. Not a complete blowout, but I think our offense may struggle a little bit, especially depending on what our running back situation looks like. It could go lower depending. It could get worse for me depending on if we don't have either Zach Charbonnet nor Kenneth Walker available. That's a big question. But even with just one of them, I really think you need both.
Probably.
You really
they're
need
different.
both.
They're different kinds of backs. Obviously, Charbonnet is a little bit bigger, a little bit better pass catcher. Kenneth Walker is more of a pure runner. Steven Supremo says Kyle was fired midseason. Maybe you can get him. LOL. I think he was talking about some of the haters were coming out when we went on that 3-game skid.
Oh, okay.
Some people might have said something about fire Kyle. There's more of, I heard of fire Wilkes, but I think all those people are eating their words now. I'm glad I wasn't one of them. Got Bryant Culp in the house. Say hey, Ted and Candace. Welcome, Bryant. Right. He has a great YouTube channel. Make sure you check him out.
Yeah.
It says smash the like button, everybody. Yeah, please do. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, as far as like the whole being out on Pete Carroll, I can understand that totally, especially when, you're talking about the defense struggling for 5-6 years, whatever it's been. But it's also what was the defense before that, right? It was the LOE
Right.
defense, all-time historic, great defense, one of the best of all time. So that's a huge discrepancy. If you're like the Chiefs, you never had a great defense. You're not missing it as much as the Seahawks, where I guess that's sort of what was the cornerstone of those great years with Russ, the Super Bowl win, the Super Bowl appearance, all that good stuff. So
Yeah, I think what we're learning is that had a lot to do with the personnel. I mean, they had Hall of Fame play. I mean, a slew of just Hall of Fame capable dudes. A couple guys may not make it in just because they don't have the years, like Cam Chancellor and all those guys. But really, you had so much Hall of Fame talent to make that scheme work, which was even known as then a simple scheme. You just had the talent to really bring that out. So then what happens if you don't have the talent and you still try to stick with the same philosophy? I really think that, I don't even think we're having this conversation if the defense is average at any point, but it really has been bottom 5, bottom 10 for like 5 years straight. And so because of how bad it's been, maybe compared to the Legion of Boom, sure, amongst the fan base, that's a thing. But I just think in general, with the Chiefs, it's fine because even though they had a bad defense until this year, Andy Reid is an offensive guy. So your offense is how you judge him, right? For any head coach, you judge them based off of their side of the ball more harshly. Like if Kyle Shanahan, when people feel like the offense isn't doing well, they say fire Kyle because he's that's his thing. I don't think people say fire, that's what you're responsible for universally looking at any coach. And so Pete's been the one exception for years, I think, because of the Super Bowl and because the ownership really trusts him. But yeah, I think I'm at that point. And yeah, to Bryant's point about Jake Bobo is awesome. Hey, and he was a full participant in practice, by the way, Bryant. So maybe you see Jake.
It's just tough because he's got such great receivers in front of him with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and JSN. But I guess he started out. Did he start out a little faster than JSN? Is that what happened?
For sure. Yep, yeah, definitely. Yeah, he was the guy who kind of filled in the role that people thought JSN would fill in. And so he just seems to be efficient enough to make it work. Jake Bobo is a guy who I think is so superior at not just running routes, but is also really superior in blocking. And I was completely wrong on him because I thought that he wouldn't even make the team. His release is so slow in training camp. I was like, there's no way this guy makes it. But I mean, his route running is just so crafty. He finds ways to get open. And I think most importantly, the Seahawks, with Jake Bobo, they've unlocked the screen game, which has been an issue for Seahawks. If you ever paid attention to Seahawks and the timeline, complaining about screens has been a thing for years, going back even to the Holmgren days. So, but Jake Bobo is a great blocker. And so I think he saved the Seahawks screen game. So despite him having so many wide receivers ahead of him, I think there's still a reasonable expectation that you can see him on the field still sometimes.
Interesting. Yeah, I saw on your channel you were talking about the screen game being back after being on for so long. So
it's been historically bad.
Jake Bobo was part of the key to that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Then everybody's just saying hi. He says Jake Bobo is the legit.
Yeah, he just
is legit.
He's been a Bobo guy since the beginning. I give him that. He called it early, and Bobo does look good. For an undrafted rookie, he's giving you much more than what you could have expected, and probably could have given you a lot more in terms of production numbers had he just had the snaps,
Yeah, got to get those touches. Got to get those snaps to get the touches. Absolutely.
You can't have him, Brian. I'm sorry.
Damn, did you see this? I would trade Jennings for Bobo.
He would. Like, how much
would Bobo have stiff-armed that Eagles DB and scored the TD in Philly? I don't know. That was pretty huge for 3rd and Juwan.
Bobo might. I mean, he had that really impressive touchdown. Yeah, Bobo's a guy. He for sure is. I kind of forgot he's been injured, but I think he has been, and that's sort of why he hasn't been as much of a splash. And it's good because it gives JSN some time to shine. But I really feel, I mean, overall, the Seahawks do just have a ton of talent. Just a matter of execution, I think, from a coaching perspective.
There you go. Maybe it's a good time to do a quick commercial break. If you see the logo in the upper corner, The TTG, that's the TravelStead Group. They're a retail and hospitality logistics company. They do transportation and warehousing for brick and mortar. So they do fixed furniture and equipment, that's FFE. They do operating supplies and equipment, that's OSE. They do new store openings. They do rollouts, relocations, decommissions. So from the first mile to the final mile and everywhere in between, TravelStead has you covered. Let them know how they can help you via air, ocean, or land. Closed loop solutions for retail and hospitality. The two main go-to guys there are Nick and Henry. They have 100% US-based support. So these are complex operations, so there's always like fine-tuning going on, but sometimes there's actual snafus, and it's good to know when you pick up the phone, you'll be talking to somebody here, not some call center overseas where they have no clue what you do. Check out the website. The link is in the description of the show, my YouTube About page, Twitter and X bio. It's also on Instagram and Facebook if you follow me there. And just click the link, check out the video, and make sure you tell them Ted sent you. So thanks in advance. Thanks, Candace, for letting me pay the bills. And thanks to the audience for your help. If that's something you do, check them out and give them a holler. Even just check out the website. It all helps to drive views. So thanks in advance.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's a new development since we last streamed together. So
yeah, that's cool. Okay.
And I also got partial YouTube monetization. I got super chats now and channel memberships. Nancy was the first member, and I've got several others as well too. And so it's fun starting to get to reap some rewards from doing this. And you've been a big part of that. So thanks, Candace. I appreciate it. Thanks. You said you want a DTR also, LOL. It sounds like Bryant's a little bit of a UCLA fan. Laura Cat in the house. She says, hey, Ted and Candace, love to see smiling female content creators. Yeah, I mean, what I'll say about Candace is, like, she's always smiling. Even, like, last year, she came on before we went to Seattle in Brock's second start and beat them there. And she agreed to come on the next week. And she came on, and she was still upbeat and smiling and super cool and friendly. And I was just like, wow, what a great person. Because, like, I offered all those Eagles content. I had 6 Eagles content creators on last week. I offered them all. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll be back. I'm like, well, you better do it, before the game, because I know how it is. Once you lose, people aren't so eager to come back. But Candace came back, even though she predicted they would lose, and she came back anyway after. Wow. I mean, that's your hats off to Candace for that. Amazing. And so knowledgeable too. I mean, it's not just that you're like smiling and just like saying nonsense. Like, you got great points too, right? I mean, so that's the key. You got the total package, Candace. So thanks.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate you, Laura. Appreciate you. Yeah, definitely, it's rare to see. So happy to represent. Happy to be here talking ball. So it's always good for me.
There you go. Brent Colt says it would be sad, but I would trade Sam Area for DTR. He's the one. He's
missed on that one, Brian.
He likes Sam Darnold too, and so he calls, instead of Trey Area, he says Sam Area. And he also is, a big special teams fan. He loves Jake Moody. If you've ever seen Bryant's overlay, the 4 corners are all pictures of Jake Moody.
That's funny.
2 from Michigan and
somebody
2
proud about that 3rd round pick. Happy for you.
Yeah, and then he's a big fan, obviously, of our punter too, and all the special teamers. So he definitely he likes the underdogs, if you will, or the players less shined upon. Sort of the more obscure, esoteric type players, and that's awesome. It makes it interesting for sure. No one's going to accuse him of front running, that's for sure.
Yeah, I can respect it. I can respect it.
Got your kicker and being greedy, LOL. Yeah, you guys do have a good kicker, right? Myers is pretty good.
Yeah, on even years, he's elite. On odd years, he's inconsistent, but still good. It's a weird thing. It really is. It's like he's like all pro. Like, he was all pro level. I mean, I think he led in field goal percentage last year, and then that was an even year. So this year he misses like some critical kicks. Then he missed a critical kick against the Cowboys. That one really hurt us. But then he had a game winner too. So he's just sort of, up and down. I like him overall, but he is he's a stick of dynamite in terms of amongst the Seahawks fan base.
There you go.
Really,
Well, we used to say that about the
not like it.
Niners, odd and even years, because Super Bowl in 2019, then COVID year in
Oh
2020,
yeah, huh?
and then lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship 2021.
Yep.
And we're like, oh boy, is 2022 going to be a drop off? And luckily, we still made it back to the NFC Championship game. And maybe you could say maybe might have gone farther if Brock Purdy had stayed healthy. I don't know. I still say it would have been 50-50 last year. I'm
Yeah,
not one of
I think
those.
I
I'm not
agree with
like
that.
Debo where I said it would have been a blowout if Purdy had stayed healthy. I don't believe that myself. But I'm just glad that Debo sort of like walked the talk, and he played like he talked. He talked a lot of smack, and he laid down a lot of smack. So good for him, and good for the Niners. I was happy to see us get that signature win. I will say, Eagles had no linebackers. Zach Cunningham was out. They hadn't signed Shaq Leonard yet. The other one from Nakobe Dean from Georgia
Yep.
is out, I think, for the year. So they were definitely a little thin. And Fletcher Cox was just coming off an injury, so I don't think he was probably quite 100%. But so be it. No, she doesn't miss Russell Wilson, actually.
No,
So you
I
must
did
be
not.
late. Because I mentioned it earlier about he was 17-4 against us. Now they're 0-4. But there's more to life of a Seahawks fan than just beating the 49ers.
Well, I don't know, but not. But no, it's really not. I think for most Seahawks fans, because of the price tag, it wasn't worth it. I mean, he wanted
Correct.
$50 million a year. Seahawks weren't going to have this roster if they had to. I mean, you either pick one or the other. You pick Russ at his level of play right now, which you could debate on if that's even good or not, and then you got the roster would be pretty bad because they just wouldn't afford to. They wouldn't have been able to afford to keep anybody who knows that they even extend DK at that point if they would have given that extension to Russell. So I think that plus the whole drama of how he left in Seattle is also a really sensitive topic. Most people didn't like his personality because it was robotic and people didn't feel like it was genuine. And I think a lot of people were tired of that. So no, I don't. I think if you ask most Seahawks fans, I think like 95% of them would say they don't miss Russ at all.
Mr. Unlimited.
Half would say good riddance,
Was
and the
pretty.
other half wishes him well, but just from afar.
There you go. So as far as other things that we should go over, I mean, like as far as the rest of the season goes, you guys play the Eagles next week, right?
Yep, they flexed that out to a Monday night game. Apparently the NFL loves to see the demise of the Seahawks. We didn't get any of our like reasonable winning opponents on live TV, on primetime TV, but apparently all of our games that I think we are going to lose are in public, so that's exciting. I think we had a shot against the Cowboys, I really do, but and obviously it proved out to be true, but just some tough luck there at the end, and honestly, probably could have been some better game planning. But I digress. So that's next. You guys up, and then the Eagles, and they do have a soft schedule to end. So I think they'll rack up a few wins to end the season overall. But I'm not really high on the team if they do make the playoffs. If they can scrape into the playoffs, I think they're pretty much food until they can really evaluate how to properly use personnel. I don't think this is a year we can blame injuries. I mean, we do have some injuries, and we have had really bad injuries up to this point. But I think the second half, I think you got people back in enough time, with the exception of Kenneth Walker, who went down at a bad time. I think you got your tackle back at a good time. Just really when the schedule picked up, a lot of guys were coming back and just couldn't take advantage of it. So it's all right. We'll see what moves, if any, they make in the offseason. I'm curious to see. But I think you guys are a great looking team. Really, I do. Like I think if y'all stay healthy, you probably go Super Bowl. I mean, go toe to toe with whoever ends up being the AFC team, and I think that would depend on we'll see how that will go in terms of who I would pick. But I really think you guys look just like an awesome team. Just railroaded through the Eagles, and I thought that was going to be way more competitive. And so just got to tip your cap. I thought maybe the CMC move would have been too much in terms of value. For running backs, it's typically not good, but he's been healthy, way healthier for you guys than he has historically. And so you've gotten to see to maximize that. And he really has been a difference maker for your team. So, yeah, I mean, I think health is the only question, but it always is, right, for every team. But you guys look great. And so, really high on you guys. Not as high on the direction of my team, at least, like I said, philosophically. But I think my team has great talent. I'm really high on the talent on the team. I am, and I'm excited about the talent on the team and seeing how they grow because they're still really young. So that's the good news that no matter what happens personnel wise, they've got so much room to grow as a team because of that. But you got to be led in a good direction.
So you're happy with Schneider, unhappy with Carroll.
Yep. Happy with Snyder, unhappy with Carroll. That's a great way to summarize it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Because I was going to ask that, because clearly they don't have the same personnel as the LOB defense, but because they were just had, like everybody thinks about that secondary and like people are calling your secondary now LOB 2.0, the secondary, but like obviously it was prime Bobby Wagner back then, KJ Wright. And then like the D line was like not a lot of superstars on the D line, but there was a lot of like almost stars or stars. There was a ton of depth.
Yep.
And you just have wave after wave after wave of really, really good, solid D linemen. I felt like the D line was always super underrated for the LOB. So I think those are areas where you guys are missing on D line and just the age of Bobby Wagner. He's not the player that he once was. And he just doesn't have the people around him either. So
I actually like the D-line pieces. I'm a real fan of the Leonard Williams move. I think he's been really good in his time with us.
I was worried about that
move. Yeah,
sure.
Draymond Jones. If you get Chenna back, Chenna was good. There are some.
What a huge pickup! He's gone for like a fifth or something from the Chargers. I mean, what a deal that was.
No, he was a free agent, so we just signed him on like a modest 2-year deal. I think it really was modest, but they re-signed him. I think they've extended him out, so he'll still be a Seahawks moving forward. They extended him this offseason, I think, because this would have been a contract year. And he started off looking great. So, I mean, even though he did get hurt, I think it was still a good move on their part. And so I actually like where the defense. I'm not big on Darrell Taylor personally, and obviously Frank Clark I'm out on him, but I like some of the young talent that they've drafted. There's been a switch in recent years if you're not like a close watcher, but Pete was pretty much a lot of people. There's a lot of speculation, and I think some slight confirmations in house, and that Pete had a lot to do with who they drafted. So they went a lot of years with a lot of bust in terms of drafting, and I think that had a lot to do with Pete Carroll's fingerprints. Shortly after the Russ, or maybe the year before the Russ drama really started, there was a shift in power, I think, in strategy completely. And John Snyder has talked about the shift in strategy to go best player available instead of just looking for need. And I think with that shift came Pete Carroll losing some personnel. And sort of based on the way he talks now, he gets input on personnel, but I don't think he gets final say the way that he used to. And I think that's a good thing. So you've been able to see these drafts become more successful and then being able to take advantage of that because of the change in strategy. And I don't think personnel was Pete's. I think it was a reason why he started off being in charge of personnel, given his connections to college, coming out of college, having real insight on these guys. But as years went on, you just lose that edge. So it made sense to have the GM actually be the GM. And I think John's done a good job since that switch has happened.
Good to know. I appreciate this. This is why I love having people on from other teams. They just have that deeper knowledge than you hear about on shows or other, people just trying to analyze the Seahawks from an outsider's perspective. It's good to have the inside juice. So also for the AFC, so you like the Ravens.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the Dolphins? I mean, I feel like since they got Jalen Ramsey playing and kind of up to speed, and then Xavier Howard back, their defense is playing a little better. That was my big knock on them most of the season was, they don't have a championship defense. But maybe they're getting closer to that. Or maybe it's just enough with an explosive offense, the Mike McDaniel offense with Tua, Waddle, and Tyreek Hill, and Mostert, of course. And then I saw, I guess, A-Chain's back now too. So or a chain or however you pronounce his name. But give me your thoughts on the Dolphins.
I'm high on their trajectory. The fact that they really haven't beaten good teams, I think, is hard to ignore. And I don't know if it's a combination of any one thing. I think they have a fairly well-rounded team there, but it's just I don't know if it's just experience, right? You've got to take some lumps and understand what it takes to win against big teams. Sometimes it's just an experience thing. McDaniels is sort of new, or if it's maybe some slight personnel tweaks on defense. Obviously, offense is super explosive. That's not the question there. But I like what they have. I just don't know if they're ready to take the next step.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I kind of see them and the Ravens as the class of the AFC right now. I'm a little down on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I've said all along, Kelsey is your only elite weapon. It makes it really hard on Mahomes.
Yep.
Same thing with Josh Allen and the Bills. All they have is Stephon Diggs as an elite weapon there.
Yep.
And they lost so many people on that defense for the Bills. Tre'Davious White, Matt Milano, Daquan Jones. I think they lost another corner too, maybe Kyrie Elam too. So a lot of.
I've never been as big on Josh Allen as others either. I mean, I respected him when he was producing well, but I've always sort of had questions. Not listening.
I'm a big Josh Allen fan. No, because a lot of people get on him for those interceptions, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, he's thrown a lot of interceptions, but if it's like a 60-yard arm punt where it's like a 50-50 ball where it could be a huge play on 3rd and long, and it ends up being an interception that's just like a punt on 4th down, like how much are we going to really dock him for something like that? And then the other thing is, like the interceptable balls versus interceptions, right? Because it can be a discrepancy. Like I noticed it this year. It came out earlier in the season. It was before Brock threw an interception, but he had 4 interceptable balls and no interceptions. I'm like, oh, lucky. The quarterback now for the Vikings, who is with the Cards, Josh Dobbs, who was the Browns at the beginning of the offseason, then the Cards, then the Vikings now.
Yep.
He had 8 interceptable balls and only one, and also no picks, just like Purdy. And like Mac Jones, 14 interceptable balls, only 4 picks. Yeah, now he's zapped. He got zapped. And then you look at some poor schmuck like, I hate to say Stafford because he's in our division, and I dislike the Rams. I don't know. I'm not going to say hate because they're not up there with like Seahawks are my number 1, and then like Cowboys number 2, and Eagles have been climbing up quickly. I think they passed the Chiefs, but the Rams are way, way further down just because, we kind of own them. Other than that one NFC Championship game, we pretty much own them in the regular season.
Yep.
But bottom line is Matt Stafford had 3 interceptable balls. So 1 less interceptable ball than Purdy, but he had 5 interceptions. So it's like, that's the other thing is like how many were like off receivers' hands that should have been caught and ended up being interceptions. So it's always for any quarterback, but that's my sort of excuses, if you'll call it, or reasons if you're a Josh Allen fan. Also, just like I look at what he's asked to do and like how he often leads the team in rushing yards and stuff like that. And it's just like, I don't know. I just think if we had Josh Allen, I think we would just boat race the league. And then we're kind of starting to do that with Purdy, or we're showing signs of we did obviously against the Eagles, but again, a healthier Eagles team playing an NFC Championship could look a lot different. I'm just going to
I'd agree with you there. Part of it is interceptions with Josh Allen for me, but also I don't think he processes the game well enough. Just overall, like part of it is just general progression, decision making things that I just don't feel like is
runs too much
when he stable enough.
Should have let things open up, and he just takes off running. That type
it's the way he processes the game for me that I feel like will always hold him back from really being able to be consistently elite. I think he will always have elite moments because he really is talented, but the way he goes through his progressions to me, and he doesn't even take advantage of Diggs the way that he should, at this point either. So I know that coach is under fire for it, but I think what Brian Daboll was able to do was help Josh Allen process the game better. I think he's regressed in that regard. And so then you see unstable results like he was before. He was inconsistent. And I think that's sort of that's where he lives home wise, unless somebody really can stay under him that can help him process the game better. So that's my take on him. But
No doubt.
I'm not a hater. I just not
No,
as
that's
high as
fine.
others.
That's fine. That's fine. I like I said, I want dissenting opinions, and didn't have you here to like say yes, Ted, you're great, or everything you say is wonderful. Like I like dissenting opinions. And obviously, like I had the Bengals much higher than a lot of people did this whole season, but now I'd say, but now without Burrow, but then Browning just comes out and has a whale of a game against the Jags. Now again, Trevor Lawrence did get injured. Hopefully he'll be back soon. Maybe not this weekend for the Browns. I've kind of started rooting for the Browns since I have a Browns weekly co-host. But the Browns are kind of up there if they could get the quarterback situation.
Yeah,
they get DTR playing near his potential, but that doesn't run out of time for that. I don't think Flacco is the answer.
Yeah,
and then it's interesting. The Steelers are
weird
early in the season when we beat them, and I was sort of like I got in a lot of trouble for like not being nice to Purdy in the offseason, not saying he was great. I still haven't said he's elite yet. I still am waiting on that. Yeah. But like after we beat the Cards, we were 4-0. And I was like, yeah, we're 4-0, but we haven't played any contenders. And I said maybe all playoff pretenders because I didn't really believe the Steelers or the Rams were playoff teams.
Yep.
And then Kenny Pickett started to play a little bit better. They started to look like it. Now he's hurt, and now they're doing terribly. Obviously, with Trubisky losing to the Patriots. It's funny. My co-host said that to me yesterday. He's like, "Oh, I think the Patriots are going to beat the Steelers." I'm like, "What?" Because I wasn't thinking Trubisky. I was thinking Kenny Pickett and that defense, and not that Kenny Pickett's great, but he was winning. He was doing well for him there for a minute. Anyway, bottom line is, what are your thoughts on the other AFC teams? Jags, Steelers, Browns. I don't know. I mean, Chargers just seem like,
I don't get the Chargers. I really that's the most mysterious team in the league to me at this point. They have so much talent. I know they have some injuries, some significant ones, but they really have too much talent to be. Hey, Joe, what's up? Joe Stevens, my bud.
We tried to get together this week, but Joe's like an evening guy, and I'm a business hours guy, and so ne'er the two shall meet. We will eventually, but maybe I'll see if I can get something for tomorrow, Joe, if you're around. I'll ask the wife at least, but it's tough because we have that young son, and
Yep.
If I'm not doing this, then I'm on daddy duty most of the time.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Ken Dorsey was the fall guy. I don't know about that. I think Ken Dorsey.
I think there was some culpable blame, but I also think so. Part of it, I do think is Dorsey because you saw Brian Daboll get the most out of Allen. So for that reason, you can justify hiring him. The question is, is it that easy to find somebody who can get the most out of Allen? I think that is the bigger question than just Ken Dorsey. So I kind of see both sides on that one. Yeah.
Speaking of Bills and coaching staff, did you see what Adam Schefter posted about Sean McDermott?
About Sean McDermott? No. I missed that one.
So Ty Dunn, who I believe is a Bills reporter, let me just double check. Buffalo. Yeah, I'm assuming he's a Bills reporter. Reported that so McDermott was addressing the team. He told them they need to come together, but then he said he used a strange model, the terrorist of September 11th, 2001. He cited the hijackers as a group of people who were able to get on the same page to orchestrate attacks to perfection. One by one, McDermott started asking specific players around the room questions. What tactics do you think they used to come together? A young player said, he said, what do you think their biggest obstacle was? And he said, a veteran said, TSA. Everybody cracked up. But I was like, wow, that
That's
is
the
pretty
direction.
wild for a coaching reference. I don't think I've ever heard of anything like that.
No, that's like what is it? The John Gannon. You got fire in your gut. Like that's just as strange to me.
Oh yeah, yeah. And when he gave that address and like all the
Yeah, the
cards,
cards.
you could hear a pin drop in that
Yeah.
room where they could run through some butcher paper for that man, like instead
Who
of a
took the
wall,
bus
right?
here?
Yeah.
Did you have fire in your gut? Like that was. Anyway, I think that
Brian
was
says he likes
that's
Allen.
weird.
Good. I like Allen too.
I mean, fantasies. Fantasy
Hasselbeck
has been
better
that
than
great.
Purdy? What are you talking about, my man? Hasselbeck.
Yeah.
Damn, that's harsh.
I'm
That's
not sure
harsh.
I can. I don't even think I can. As a Seahawks fan, I don't think I can hop on that board with you. I
That,
mean, Hasselbeck was cool, but also, yeah, I don't know. I guess if you deep dive, I
I
do
mean,
think Purdy
it's hard. It's
is
hard
a
to evaluate Purdy because
yeah
we have the Avengers. We have
his situation
CMC,
is
we have
so
Debo, we have Kittle, we have Ayuk,
right.
and Grant Cohn did an interesting article about like who's the Niners' best weapon, and ultimately, like
All of them.
4 games this season, it was Debo. 4 games this season, it was CMC. 4 games this season, it was Kittle, or maybe it's Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, and then CMC is just the consistent one all the way
Right.
across. And it's just like so it's people said all along like pick your poison offense, right? And I always just say like if you're dealing with a poisonous snake, what do? You cut the head off. So get some pressure. So I've been saying all along our weakness on our team is our O line,
Yeah.
specifically the right side. Spencer Burford, second-year player at right guard. He can be had even when he's not getting blown over as a blocker. He's committing penalties a lot of the time. And then McKivitz is a decent pass blocker, but not very good in the run game. So that's definitely the weakness of our team. I was saying Isaiah Oliver at nickel, but then we moved Lenore from the boundary to the nickel, and then we brought in Ambry Thomas to play a boundary, and Lenore's been doing incredible, and Ambry's doing pretty well. And so I don't know that there's really any holes in Jair Brown, the rookie filling in for Hufanga, has been doing well.
Right.
He's had some mistakes, but like I don't think anything worse than what Hufanga was doing. I mean, I think Hufanga is a better leader,
Right.
but they were kind of clones to begin with. The Hufanga and Jair Brown, they were both like 4.6, so technically slow as track speed goes, but they play with anticipation, so they played much faster than the track speed. Both ball hawks to get interceptions, but not really good in coverage. Both big hitters, but not really good tacklers, and both great blitzers. And it's just like all those things. You could just, if you had a chart of all these things, like they look exactly the same, except for maybe Jair Brown's a little bigger than Hufanga. He's a little undersized. But anyway, it's kind of interesting. It's interesting as we come into like, do we extend Hufanga, Ayuk, Chase Young now? There's a question about like, does he want to stay? Will he take less to stick with his Buckeye bookend Bosa? I don't know. We'll see.
Is that been as dominant as you hoped? I haven't paid.
Chase Young's been really big. I mean, I've been saying all along, like I thought the biggest thing was getting Isaiah Oliver off the field, our nickel corner, because any fast slot receiver once he got a step was gone. Mm-hmm. Also, moving the corners up. Remember us? We were playing a lot of almost quasi prevent defense, way off the ball. And Mooney Ward is best when he's right there on the line of scrimmage to, impede the receiver's release. So we've been doing more of that. I think those two things are at least as important as Chase Young. Chase Young's really important. Also, Wilkes came down from the booth to the field. I didn't think that was necessary or would do much good, but I think it's done at least some good, at least for sure. Right when he did it, there were reports the players were really, appreciative of it. And he was, fired up. I was worried that he was too stoic and was it going to be more like a thief of joy there on the sideline. But it seems like he changed up his persona to get down there, coming down there. So that's been working well too. So it's sort of all four of those things.
Yeah. Okay.
Have been working well for the Niners.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I think that would have been the weaknesses I came into the season. Like, okay, secondary, a couple questions there, and then the O line, but it seems like that stuff has been shored up. And I think you just negated your O line liabilities by just getting the ball out fast, which makes sense. So, oh no, Joe. Oh, Oh, Joe, no way, no way,
Prez is
no
going to
man,
get
I gotta
you.
come on the channel and fight. Absolutely not. That's despicable.
All right,
Despicable.
Colt says, I
This is
love the culp
blasphemy.
reference. Culpable means fault, to blame, culprit. It's my fault. It is your fault, Brian. I blame you for everything, even the winning. So you get blamed for that too. Totally fine. Family over everything. There you go. Yeah, it's family first. Happy wife, happy life, as they say.
Yep.
So, funny story. Yesterday I was out with my son. We went to the park. We were running our cars, and then like we always go wherever we run the cars, we go to places that have play structures too. So, after he runs the cars for a little bit, he can go play with little kids on the play structures. So then I'm like just outside of the play structure fence and running the cars around, and this little boy with his grandmother they're walking, and he's like looking like he wants to. And I was like, oh, yeah, you want to try? You can do the steering, and I'll do the gas for you, and like just leaning down to like let the kid try the RC car. All of a sudden, my son's just like, daddy. I'm like, what happened? And he's like, a squirrel bit me, and like his finger's all bloody, and I was just like, oh man, it was like crazy because he was like holding like a Tupperware full of like little cheese crackers. And so the squirrel kind of came up, and he went for the squirrel, and the squirrel bit him, and like so everybody's like, oh, rabies. I'm like, it's not a rabid squirrel. I saw the squirrel after. He wasn't like foaming at the mouth or anything like that. He looked just, he was just chilling. And anyway, I was like, well, son, it's not really the squirrel's fault if he's doing what his instincts tell him to do. Like when you reached out to pet him, he probably thought you were trying to kill him. And my son said, Daddy, I was trying to kill him. I didn't want him to take my crackers. Oh, man. That's cute. So anyway, we're keeping an eye on it, obviously, to see if it gets infected or if anything happens. But it was a fair amount of blood. But by the time we got home and washed it up, it was just like a little nick. It was pretty minor. And so I was trying them. I was like, you can't be mad at it. It's not the squirrel's fault. We can't be mad at the squirrel. We can't say we're not going to go back to that park. It's not, there's nothing. You learned a good lesson. As I said, son, I never get close to a wild animal, right? And also we've been trying to bang this one home for a while. Like, don't eat while you're playing, and don't play while you're eating. Yeah. Like, eat your food and then play separately. Don't bring your toys to the dinner table. And like, here's another good example of like eating while you're playing, and it really bit you, not in the face, but on the finger.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of funny.
That is funny.
He says, I want to see Jamal on the bench Sunday.
Absolutely not.
Wow.
Absolutely not. No,
he's just trying to rile you up now.
No, I don't know why. Now I think he's serious. He's super serious.
2 tackles on 1 play. Wow. Well, that's good recovery then, I'd say.
I mean, yeah, he gave up ultimately the touchdown in the end, but like, I also think Kobe Bryant 100% gives that up. Like, there's just no way. Like,
it's just a good thing you guys didn't trade like 2 firsts and a third for him and pay him a gang of money, right? I mean, that's
yeah, yeah. But Kobe Bryant was quite literally like the 6th worst cornerback in the league when he was playing. And Jamal Adams, though he might have his flaws, still battles out to be good at the very least. Is he worth the money? No, he's not worth the money, but he is actually good, and Kobe Bryant is quite literally one of the worst cornerbacks in football. And I think he would be far better at safety. They put him at safety in training camp for a reason, because I think it better fits his skill set. But even then, he still had issues in coverage, even more so than Jamal Adams, because he's just so undersized that he doesn't have the arm length to break up some of those tackles. Jamal is not terrible. Jamal is good, but Jamal has high expectations, so he's not worth the money he's being paid. Now he's serious. He was low on Jamal anyway, and so like, I get it. He's overpriced. He 100% is overpriced. I'm not going to tell you he's worth the money he's being paid, but I also think you could do a lot worse. And I've seen this team with bad safeties, and it's bad. Like, it's hard to watch. We are disappointing defensively right now, but like, it's not even quality NFL football. We don't have good safeties. So
Seahawks maybe overinvest a little bit in their secondary. Niners maybe overinvest a little bit in their D line.
Yep.
I would love to see us invest more in our secondary. Ever since 2020, when Bosa went down, and we had obviously we had Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tart, but we also had Jason Verrett in one of his only healthy seasons ever. He wasn't 100% healthy. He played 13 games.
Right.
But like somehow we managed to have a top 5 defense without Bosa and with Sherm out for most of the season.
Yep.
And it just showed me like secondary is so important. And it's just like we just constantly somehow now ours is doing well with some late round picks and whatever. But like just watch when it's time to pay them, they're gonna end up on the streets because we won't invest in our secondary like we do in our D line.
Yeah, it's like, we feel we need to balance out better. And I think this year it is more balanced in terms of salary, though. I think it's more balanced in talent. I don't think it's more balanced in like where our resources are going, for sure. No way to argue that. Now, Jamal is struggling with tackling. One, he literally came off of an injury that like most people don't come back from. Two, he's actually been better in coverage because of it. So like I feel like people should pick a side because everybody's complaining about how bad he is in coverage. He's actually been really good in coverage with the exception of giving up that touchdown. And now he struggles to tackle. But I think he'll be fine with the full offseason, to be honest. Who's Oliver?
Isaiah Oliver, the terrible nickel I was telling you about. Sounds like they're probably about right. 6th worst. That's probably about right. I think Isaiah Oliver might be just worst. But hey, Joe says Lano Hill is better than Jamal at this point. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, no.
If you guys want to cut him, we will take him. Absolutely, we're real thin at safety because we lost Hufanga with the ACL, and then George Odom, who's our backup safety and special team star, probably our best special teamer, tore his bicep, I believe, or his pec. I think it was Thanksgiving. I think it was at Seattle. So he's gone at least till late, maybe Super Bowl if we make it that far. But we're dangerously thin at safety. That's why we signed Logan Ryan this week. I think he's pretty over the hill, other than his depth.
That does make sense. But I wouldn't cut him. I'd trade him. But I wouldn't cut him. I'm not that low on him to just cut him.
Kobe Bryant, future 49ers safety. You heard
it? Ain't no way. If they didn't cut LJ Collier, Bryant, I can assure you that they're not cutting Kobe Bryant.
LJ Collier, what a great first round pick.
Ooh. Yeah, Cardinal now.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. They grabbed a lot of our scraps off of the cut pile this year. 2 or 3 of our guys that we liked. I think we got one of them back. We got Il Manning back, so we were happy about that. Who's an offensive lineman. He's undersized. He's 6'2", but he does well. So we'll see. Anything else that we should go over? I think we've kind of covered everything. Any burning desires? Everybody make sure you follow Candace at Candace H901 on Twitter, at Ethos Seahawks on Twitter, and then our YouTube channel is down below in the description. Click the link.
Yep.
Give her a like, give her a subscribe, and we'll have to do this again soon. I mean, if you want to come back next week, I'll definitely commit, even if we lose. But
I'm not passionate enough about the Seahawks to talk after a loss because I really do predict you guys are going to win. I think we what did I say 28-17 I think is my prediction.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. And by the way, guys, if you are following me, most of my football content is on Ethos Seahawks, but I do NBA as well. That's more going to be on my personal page, so you can follow me. Just have that in mind. But yeah, man, I think you guys are a really good team. I'm predicting a loss here, hoping we can be competitive. And maybe they pull out a surprise win, but for me, it won't change my outlook on the season at this point.
Well, that's understandable, but I have a feeling it's going to be closer than some people think just because of this. I think the Seahawks are tired of losing. I think the Niners might be a little bit too much believe in their own press, too much hype going on.
Yeah, I can see that.
Joe said, "Don't count on us."
Yeah, Joe's with us. Yeah, but yeah, I think Jamal and Kobe are. That's where we it's a clear divided line there. We disagree. We agree on a lot of stuff.
I
That's the
think
one
most
thing we don't
people are
agree
with
on.
you, Candace. Joe, you know, I love Joe, but
Yeah.
you know, yeah, he's off on this one. Well, maybe he'll be proved right. We'll see. Hey, well, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks to the audience. We had a great participation.
Yeah.
Really kept things lively and interesting. I'll just say peace and go Niners. Do you want to give us a go Hawks?
Go Hawks. Absolutely.
All right, right on. Thanks, Candace.